She still is. And so she got something out of it too. She would take me to the strip club and she would get a lap dance along with me. So the two of us would be sitting next to each other holding hands. I would have a lap dance by a white woman and Marcy would inevitably pick the one black woman in the joint. There's always at least one. And then have a lap dance from her. And it was just this weird thing, but it was her idea, and yes, that actually did happen. Even though the irony is that everyone assumes that did not happen.
Did you really once pick up the homeless woman and she robbed you? Did that really happen?
Not the robbing part, no. Everyone assumes that happened, but that never happened. I threw that in there just for dramatic, just for drama's sake. But picking up the homeless women, there's some dispute as to how homeless they really were. But yeah, I mean, it's like you go to a party or you go to a political event, and you try and talk to some Natalie Portman lookalike or some Reese Witherspoon lookalike, and you're just denied access. It's only after. Huh?
Explain the part of the book for the viewers.
Which part?
Of what happens with the homeless woman and the.
Oh well, I mean, I kind of am, because it's like, if you look like Reese Witherspoon, if you look like Natalie Portman in this culture, and if you've had it, if you've had a safe and secure upbringing, if you've had a spoiled upbringing, then you're going to be steered down a certain path, and more than likely you're going to be steered towards a white man with some money. But after a woman has been either homeless or near homeless after a certain amount of time, let's just say the princess gets knocked off the pedestal, and as a result, she's not going to be so quick to turn her nose up at a black guy if he says two words to her. And so, it was the case that in order to have any access to a beautiful white woman at all, short of just flat out bribing a prostitute, short of that, the only hope someone like me would be is if you dealt with someone that was either homeless or near homeless, or just having been knocked off that pedestal by poverty, makes it so that, again, they would not be so adverse to the idea of is someone non-white talking to them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, explain what happens in the story of what.
Well, I mean, there's just this point in the story where the protagonist, his heart is broken yet again, and so, he sees this woman on the street asking for spare change, and he buys her dinner, and the next thing you know, she's following him back to his place, like a lost puppy in the rain, and again, it's like it takes having been that, maybe not desperate, but aware that the world is not the Barbie fairy tale fantasy that they had assumed it was. Poverty does that to you. Poverty has that effect. It'll if not enlighten, it will at least awaken.
How often would you do this? Meet homeless women and buy them food?
If it was once, it was once too many. I mean, it's just sad because it shouldn't have happened at all. What should have happened is, let me put it this way: if there was a white guy that could write any genre of fiction, that was winning awards, writing a newspaper column, that was capable of drawing, it wouldn't even be an issue. But as Chris Rock so aptly said in his comedy special, Kill the Messenger, a black man has to fly to get to something that a white man can just walk to, And the biggest problem with Vegas wasn't, the white supremacy was there. But that wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was having to compete with trivia, having to compete with some white guy who works at Kenny's Shoes when I had accomplished 10 times more, And what was I doing competing with such a person in the first place? If a white woman left me for a white guy that, I don't know, had built a time machine, okay? Yeah, I could see losing out to Doc Brown or Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, but come on. That's not who we were talking about here. I mean, as was the case in my book, I hate to give away the end of it, but the finale has it where, and this really did happen. Claudia Woodman, that was her real name. Claudia Woodman left me for a guy that looked like.
We talked about this.
Oh, we did already?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, how many girlfriends have you had?
Oh, God. If I could count Claudia, that's one. And then I guess Marcy, even though that was a lie. And then most recently, Janet Proctor of Port Orchard. I mean, in terms of relationships that lasted longer than a couple of dates, the rest of the time it's either been prostitutes or bringing homeless women home or yeah, I mean, it's my love life is a post-nuclear apocalypse. As is the case with most nerds. So,
Like, what's your ideal relationship?
At this point, I've actually given up. I know this is not the sort of thing that an activist is supposed to say. We're not supposed to give up on anything, But, yeah, I have given up on relationships. I have just pretty much conceded that I'm going to spend the rest of my life alone, and that's fine. It's taken me a long time to deal with that, but, I just have gotten to the point where, I just don't have the time. I certainly don't have the money. I don't even have the energy for a relationship. I just want to just focus on the mission, raising the public IQ, getting to the point where I can afford to cut huge donation checks to charity,
What was your?
Is that what being famous means to you? To be able to do that?
Well, fame. Well, there's fame and there's fortune. Being famous means that when you say Sarah Palin is retarded, then people take you seriously, and they won't vote for her as a result. That's what fame, or I don't know. It's kind of a fine line between fame and popularity, because you can be famous and be hated. But assuming that you're famous and loved, assuming that you're popular, then what you say, goes. You tell someone to take part in this organization or show up at this protest, then folks will do it because they know who you are, and hopefully they like you too. Then there's fortune. There are a lot of rich folks that aren't famous. In fact, they go out of their way to keep from being famous because they're afraid of someone asking them for money, and so they're able to cut checks. But see, my goal is to be both, because if I'm famous, then I can point to things like Project Censored, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and groups like that raise the public's IQ. And on the other hand, if I have fortune, then I can afford to cut those same organizations huge donation checks, and that way, they can stay in existence.
Is that what you want to be able to do with Sarah Manlove?
Yeah. That, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, but if it were up to me, I would prefer that to be my introduction to the world. In other words, just as She's Gotta Have It was Spike Lee's introduction to the world, just like Clerks was Kevin Smith's introduction to the world. What was Woody Allen's first film?
Take the Money and Run. No, What's Up, Tiger Lily?
The first one.
What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Okay, well then that would be his, and in my case it would be, The Strange Case of Sarah Manlove, the movie.
There's no in between? Nothing before that?
I think I've had enough in between as it is. I mean, it's like God, I've done, as the Kenny Loggins song goes, "Meet me halfway." I've been at the halfway point for the longest. I think I've done enough in between as it is. There's not much more for me to do at my end. Certainly, I can't afford to do anything else. So, the only hope now is investment. It would take a bare minimum of $5 million to make a decent movie that folks won't talk shit about. And on the other hand, for the only thing less than that would be like a book tour. But a book tour would be, a nationwide book tour would cost tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even $100,000. Because you're talking about, going on the road. And I wouldn't, in good conscience, I wouldn't want to go on the road with a gas guzzler. I want to go on the road with an eco-friendly car of some kind. which is going to cost even more. But it's got. I mean, if you're going to be traveling across the country, you gotta. That's what you got to do. You know, get one of those vegetable oil running things. You know, where you stop at a fast food place and you ask for their grease and you put the grease in the car. That sort of thing. You know, I mean, that may be more expensive, but it would be the right thing to do. Ideally, a book tour would take me through every historically black college there is. And I would hit each black college in the fall, just as school was starting, and then just hit them with copies of my work. But so that's not cheap, you know. Also, too, you're going to run into instances, plenty of instances, where, like, if there's a book fair or some kind of literary event, and they're charging for a table, I got to be able to pay that without even thinking about it. More money, more money, more money. So a book tour cannot be cheap.
Have you thought of doing like the bookstores in Seattle, like going around seeing if any of them could do something?
but see, I mean, been there, done that. You know, I've had 2 book signings at Left Bank Books here in town. That was before I left for Vegas, back in the late '90s, and one for AD, one for Battle Never Ending. I mean, I just, no. There's no way around it. You know, I am overdue for some massive investment.
How do you
Long
expect to get
overdue.
that?
Begging. Hoping that someone with some money is watching this thinking, oh my God, I could invest in Dude, Where's My Car Part 2 or Beverly Hills Chihuahua Part 3, or I could do the right thing and get the money to Saab.
Actually, turn off the camera for a minute.